All right, Ryan Gury with Performance Drone Works. You guys just opened up a brand new facility, Huntsville, Alabama. Um, is it 90,000 or 100,000 square feet? Because I saw both figures.
90,000.
90,000 square feet. You're going to be adding 500 jobs to the area. Obviously, building the C100 and the new A. Is it AM or AM FPV?
AM, we call it what it is, attributable multi-rotor.
Okay.
Attritable multi-rotor.
And last question I have for you before we dive into it, Ryan. Uh, the official name, I want to make sure I get it right. So obviously Drone Factory 01, is it DF01 or just DF1? How do you
We just call it Drone Factory 1. It's our
Drone
first
Factory
factory.
1? Okay. I want to make sure we have all of the monikers and everything correct
Yeah. Yeah.
before we dive into it, because if I, say it wrong, then that's bad news. Let me close this so I don't get bugged by any notifications. Perfect. So Ryan, this new facility that you guys just opened in Alabama, I got to imagine that it's exciting but a lot of work, right?
Yeah. I would say that we've been pretty beneficial in the market responding and growing in attritable warfare, right? Where essentially exquisite systems and the legacy style of how aerospace and programs of record were once, and in some ways still are, champion at Department of Defense, are now being disrupted by small companies leveraging commercial technologies to develop combat systems that are a fraction of the price and offer greater performance, than the assets that we created for things like the war on terror, right? So our thesis is that there is a massive generational change occurring on the battlefield. Legacy U.S. primes, really cannot win today's wars, and there is a massive shift occurring towards attributable robotics, which is what we specialize in. And we leverage commercial technologies, much like you see in the Eastern War in Ukraine, or with Russia's use of the Shahed, to develop and mass manufacture combat systems, for tomorrow's warfighters.
And when you say you leverage commercial technologies, what does that mean? And how does that allow you to, move quicker and iterate faster and all of the things that the DoD is looking for? How does that all, come into play by you being able to take advantage of commercial technologies? What doors does that open?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, commercial technologies have reached such a point of maturity that you can develop weapons and scale them. And that's what we're seeing on the front lines in Europe. Now, 70 to 80% of all strikes are being delivered by a drone the size of a dinner plate using parts from Amazon and Alibaba. And they outperform legacy systems like the Switchblade. And we believe that the maturity of commercial technology has greatly disrupted the Department of Defense and how weapons are being made. Where things like, exquisite systems that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars are going to be disrupted by systems that cost a few $1,000s. And I think that aerospace was once the king of this sector of product development. Magnesium casted bodies and FPGAs and starting your own camera, rolling your own cameras and high-speed lines and just satellite space technology to make combat systems, right? I think the style of aerospace still yields well for intercontinental ballistic missiles at hypersonic speeds and satellites. But when it comes to small robotics in the front line, the ways that they go about engineering don't work anymore. You can't sit around for 10 years on a program of record hanging out. You have to constantly be evolving and iterating at fast speed. And we believe that that's where the growth market is, where users and operators on the front line are keenly aware of these systems, are going to want access to these systems, and it's our job to fulfill them at a fraction of the price so they can be distributed at scale, right? Because the entire idea of attributable robotics is that you make tons of them, millions of them. And this factory's representation of that. We have our engineering team sitting right next to our manufacturing line, and when a customer comes in with a piece of feedback, we can implement it on the manufacturing line. We use mass manufacturing techniques and what we call DFM, design for manufacturing, so that when we're putting together a combat system, the bomb is really like low in parts and sourced domestically, but very simple to scale. And I think that you can see that in our product that we just released, AM10, which is called the attributable multi-rotor 10-inch. It costs the end user a few $1,000s. You can use a shape charge, you can use an anti-personnel charge, you can put a SIGINT device on it. Eventually, we want to be able to put a gimbal device on it. It flies for an incredibly long period of time. It's user serviceable. If you break an arm, you can just take one off and put a new one on in a few seconds. They're made to be, mass manufactured, and we're talking a bomb of a few dozen parts, right? And it's the exact opposite of what the aerospace products look like, right?
Mm.
If you go into a convention and you get a chance to check out a switchblade or a javelin, those are technologies that were developed in the 90s, right? And things have progressed greatly. And you can see that in evidence of the war in Ukraine, where they use the Shaheds, or the Houthis taking out Reapers in the sky with a $20,000 to $40,000 missile. There is a new era in front of us, and it's being built by commercial technologies, and we must lead. And that style of fast iterative development and hacker level speed is what America does best. We still run Silicon Valley, right? Like, we still have the best AI. We are very much capable of scaling hardware better than China, better than anyone. And I think that our customer and the world is changing quickly, and we're here to support them and do everything in a sense of scale, right? And we mean by the millions. We can make 60,000 drones a year, right? We look at them as munitions, right? So, like, you should compare our drone to like a mortar round,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's it's very different from what we see across the space, right? The Lockheeds, the Raytheons, the Andurils, they're all still making these exquisite systems, and you can't really scale a system when it costs $400,000, right? Not everyone can have access to them. That's that's not that's not the thesis in which we see doctrine changing, and it doesn't represent the next generational change on the battlefield.
When you talk about scale and the U.S. needing to make millions of these, and uh, your facility will be able to make 60,000 a month, is do you imagine that this is the first of several facilities that PDW will have, or is PDW part of a larger picture of other manufacturers all contributing to that millions? I mean, what's kind of your crystal ball insight into that?
Well, both. There's room for a few PDWs out there, and the reason why we call it Drone Factory One is inferring that there'll be another.
Mm.
We believe that there needs to be an arsenal of small robotics on the front lines. There are a few companies, only a handful though, and they're still early stage that are aligned with us in the style in which you make robotics, and we think that they're going to be greatly successful as well. I think what we're after is the end of these exquisite systems. We want to see a marketplace where users can rate and buy and choose what they want. We want to remove the red tape and these long programs of records. We want to compete and iterate like you do in any other B2C or B2B business, right? And I think that's what America needs. I'm greatly proud of the competence of this country and our ability to create and innovate. I think we do that better than anyone. Um, and it's only been a few years since the first strike of a small drone in Ukraine. We've gone from the first strike of a small drone now to 70 to 80% of all strikes. So this
Right.
just happened. And I think that we have to develop domestically our own motors and our own batteries. We developed attritable robotics in a way that can be sustainable and scalable, not only for the taxpayer but for the warfighter. And I think small drones, kind of show the early beginnings of what robotics on the edge can be, right? Like, you can hit targets from concealed cover 20 miles away. You can work with a
Yeah.
mothership to stay eyes on target and use signal relays. We saw Project Spiderweb. This is just the tip of it, tip of the
Right.
spear. And it's really important that America leads in this space. And we're excited for the growth and for the expansion. If anything, it's just a ton of responsibility for us to deliver, and we're very excited to be in the position that we are, to be disruptors. And we think that a lot of good will come from it.
The location of the facility in Huntsville, Alabama, obviously not by chance. Um, there's the location to different military facilities in the area. How does that going to help with the rapid iteration and the feedback loop with your closest customers?
Yeah, we picked Huntsville for a few different reasons, and they range from price per capita, making an affordable city for our employees, which also translates into the cost for the taxpayer and the warfighter. Culturally, it's wonderful here, not only just from both sides of the aisle, but everyone is, very nationalist and driven toward America and American futures. Our big customer in the Army is here, PMUAS, and it's just got an incredible engineering driven talent pool where we can source from many decades of aerospace growth. When we started the company in Manhattan, which was no place for a defense company, kind of looked across America as a great home, and we thought Huntsville was just perfect. We could find big fields to fly. Everyone is supportive of what we do. Culturally, it's wonderful, and it's really cost efficient. And when we look at our competitors who sit, you know, on the coast, that's a barrier for them. It might be a little easier for them to get, that hardcore Silicon Valley talent, but we have it here too. And it's a lot easier to fly. We fly our rigs 3 to 5 hours before they goes in the hands of customers. It's easy for us to find airspace.
Hmm.
We're down the street from Redstone Arsenal. Next door is AeroVironment, the Raytheons, and the Blue Halos. Painted our building black because we want to be cool disruptors. And it's just a great town. So we're very fortunate to be here. We all have small children. We all go to the great schools in Madison County, and it's just a great place to build. Um, Wonderful history as well.
When you talk about the skill sets that you're looking for, and obviously able to draw from a varied talent pool there, 500 jobs in DF1. What kind of skill sets are you looking to hire? If there's folks in college right now looking to maybe put their resumes out, what are you looking for on their resumes to that equates to a good match for PDW?
Well, first and foremost, we leverage combat veterans, soft veterans, to as executives to drive engineering requirements, customer facing. So, our chief revenue officer, our chief technology officer, and our head of R&D are all soft combat veterans. And I think at this point, the leadership team is 65% veteran led. And if you're in deep tech or hard tech or defense tech, and you're building products for the future, you're essentially underwriting or betting on the future of military doctrine, what the heck they're going to come out of West Point with, right? So the best way to do that is by leveraging combat veterans. I'm a civilian. I'm a technologist. I grew up as a patriot watching Band of Brothers, so forth, but I've never experienced warfare. And, as a user, that is a very particular user to get right. The way that we move quickly is by leveraging people who've been in the shoes of our operators, right? So that when we're designing or choosing requirements or picking operational or thresholds for requirements, we have someone in the room in charge who, understands what a combat system should be. On the other side, we need hackers, people who are not wearing khakis and drink white wine, people who can move fast, who can author quickly. I love a senior engineer who still, likes to execute.
Hmm.
We're not huge on process. We probably need a bit more process, but we like to move fast and operate like a startup. We like to make mistakes, like to put equipment in the hands of users. We like to fly prototypes. About 100% of our spend is on IRAD. And we have a group of people who love to execute and who are senior and have been around the block. And I think at this point we can get a PCB run our first try, right? So design, schematic, layout, get in, and I'm sure we can bring it up, right? So there's a lot of things you have to do right to be in this business. It feels like spinning plates sometimes, but if you take a step back, all the fundamentals are kind of all in front of you. You need to understand the user, their day to day, and leverage that user as part of your executive team because there's no more particular of a user than a soft unit who's got his life on the line. And then you need to scale embedded hardware and software, which are
Hmm.
some of the most die-hard, nerdy, awesome junkhead hackers you can find, and put them together. And I think when you do that, you're going to find two groups who are essentially along the same, value base. They love to operate. They care very much about details. They work really hard and have really high work ethic.
And they're
And
both powered by caffeine, right?
both powered by what's the stupid drink? It starts with a C.
Oh, the
It's
Celsius.
Zin and Celsius, yes,
Yeah,
nonstop, yes. But I think like a lot of our engineers in a prior life could have been self operators, right?
sure.
And I think we like to execute and get shit done and operate well, and we care very much about execution. We debate like hell. It sucks to be in an argument with a soft veteran. Like that's the worst. I have to endure that daily. But I think we just believe in the mission, and we believe in the way forward, and it's written on the wall, and it's primed for disruption. It's no better place that you can be when you have a singular mission across the entire company for everyone to sink their teeth into. And that's our driving force. And it paints the picture forward for us. Right now, we're debating, how inexpensive our combat system should be so that we can scale it and still make money to keep the lights on, right? And we're talking a few $1,000s of the next version of the Javelin. What an incredible position to be in. What an amazing space to build for. And it has the most important user ever. And we get to, mess around with people who are gotten a little lazy, right? It's wonderful. So we're just really excited to be in this position. We know the path forward is through a lot of humility and delivering value. And I think that's one of the things that we know, right? No matter how much fancy marketing or how much promises are out there, at the end of the day, it's the operator making the decision to buy. It's the guy on the front lines who's going to make the call on whether your kid is worth it or not. And we know if we can continually shoveling value in that direction, it's going to work its way out. And it seems to be just the best path forward and the best business to be in.
Yeah. Want to kind of break down some of the things you said and kind of attack it from like a critic or devil's advocate point of view. So when you have 65% of your leadership team, former soft operators, former veterans, that sort of thing, there is a criticism of folks who are like the military industrial complex. Like, I don't think it really exists. If it did, we wouldn't have a 20-year backlog on like naval repairs, right? But with folks who are critical of the military industrial complex and they see this pipeline going from the military to the defense tech companies like PDW, um, what is your answer, or how do you respond to critics who say, our military is just a pipeline for these rich and powerful companies just to keep making more bombs and weapons to keep warfare going? I mean, you kind of answered it a little bit with some of your responses, but directly, how do you answer that criticism?
Oh, they should be the biggest proponents of PDW in the world and probably our biggest fans. Dime for dime, we're offering more lethality than any other combat system ever made. We're keeping our warfighters safe. We're keeping our country, lethal. That's our job. And yeah, I'm gonna cut the price of the Javelin to 2 to 3%. You're never gonna get a better return on the price coming out of this office. We're here to disrupt. We're here to make things affordable for the taxpayer. We're here to scale affordable lethality, right? And we essentially see these as critical categories of combat systems that are going to last for many decades. When I look at a 5 or 10 pound or 25 pound mothership, that's a combat system that'll be leading for the next 20 to 30 years. The AM-10, the single-time use quadcopter, that can be lethal, that can hit a target, that can find targets, that can do SIGINT. That'll be a category of combat system that'll last 50 years. I look at things like at the STG-44, which was the first assault rifle made, after World War I or by the Germans.
Hmm.
Before that, it was all bolt action.
Right.
The STG-44 just basically evolved into the M4, which is what we use today, and fires every cartridge we will probably forever. And that's what we're inventing. And it's affordable, it's scalable, and it's going to keep our homeland safe. And most importantly, our guys safe. So I think we're the best solution, to wasting taxpayer money.
Bet. I want to talk a little bit about the drones themselves. Obviously, they're remote control capability, right? The FPV, you're going to have a pilot with goggles, kind of flying that thing into where it needs to be. But there are some like AI components to this as well, right? You're building in so that these can kind of eventually swarm and operate autonomously as well.
Yeah, they're compute enabled, and we have a camera pipeline that allows you to do computer vision. Um, it can certainly fly itself. I think when the Pentagon and the state and other companies like Turbine One or Athena or Project Maven, which is currently championed by Palantir, really begin to deploy computer vision at the edge for automatic target recognition and implement standards to keep our system safe, right, with trusted module platforms, chips that can't be disrupted in supply chain attacks or fall into the hands of our enemies, right? We'll eventually evolve into an automated, hunter killer style of weapon system, right? I think that's currently, somewhat being deployed by Russia and Ukraine. You can see them using YOLO,
Mhm.
which is a computer vision model called "You Only Look Once," to identify enemies and perform surveys. It's certainly where warfare is heading, but our effort is hardware. Right? We are creating low-cost vehicles at scale that can be depended upon by frontline operators, right? And we support any type of payload, any type of modularity, any type of computer vision model someone can throw at us. It is certainly a combat system, and it's made to be modular and interoperable.
You bet. Last question I had for you, Ryan. One of the things that initially caught our eye about PDW was honestly like your great merch, right? Your t-shirts, the stickers, like all the cool things that PDW puts out, and like all the graphic artists that you guys employ. So I guess my last question is just kind of like, what's your personal favorite piece of merch that PDW has put out over the last few years?
Um, we do a lot of merch that is a juxtaposition between the old ways of fighting and the new ways of fighting. One of the pieces of merch we have is a bunch of drones fighting in the Battle of the Bulge.
Mm,
And I think that's important because, you know, maneuver warfare, mechanization, attrition, all of those really were categorized and invented around those two world wars. And my goodness, what they would have thought with the tools that we have today.
mm.
And I think the world flipped on its head. Like we've been building in this space for almost 10 years, and we knew the power of a small drone, not only the scale, but just the complete dominance of 3D space. And to see it happen today at such a scale is equally scary as it is, serves a little retribution, right? It's uh, it's incredibly potent and it's going to have a very long lasting effect. So when we do merch and we have drones flying in World War II scenes, I love that. And I think that speaks to our thesis and the scale of what we're trying to build.
You bet. Ryan, that's all the questions I had for you today, man. Anything else you'd like to say? A question I didn't ask you feel like needs to be answered at this time?
No, I do think that there needs to be greater uh, alignment toward attritable robotics. The word attritable keeps getting thrown around. I think you have to. Attritable generally means munition. Munition means a few $1,000s.
Hmm.
So how we build an industry around weapon systems and robotics that costs the taxpayer a few $1,000s is really critical. And we want to see more conversation around that, the strategies and techniques used to get there. It's really going to make or break a lot of the players in this space, and um, we want to see a big industry. We think it's a lot bigger than PDW, and we want to see that value go to the Army and the Navy and our warfighters.
You bet.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.